Somewhere in your past, there's a thing that went wrong, and you've never quite done it again. It was over in an afternoon, maybe years ago, but some part of you has been arranging your life around it ever since. Why? Welcome to Let's Talk About Confidence. I'm John M. Walsh. This is Season 3, Nervous Not Broken. All season, we've made the case that the nerves you feel before something that matters are not a sign that you're broken, just a sign that it matters, that you can feel the fear and act anyway, and collect the evidence that you coped. But there's an obvious question sitting underneath all of that, and it's only fair that we face it. What happens when you do the thing and it goes wrong? When you feel the fear, you push through it anyway, and then it doesn't work. When the fear, in a sense, comes true. Because that's the real test of everything we've talked about. Being brave is easy when it goes well. The harder, more important question is, what do you do when it doesn't? So that's where we're going today. When it goes wrong, and how you get your nerve back afterwards. I've watched this in capable people for years. The long shadow a single bad afternoon can cast. A presentation that fell flat, and they've avoided the big ones ever since. An idea that got shot down in a meeting, and they've kept their good ones to themselves from that day on. The event was over long ago, but the lesson they took from it is still running the show. So let me start with what a setback does to us, because it's more than just a bad day. When something goes wrong, especially something public, something that mattered, doesn't just sting in the moment, it leaves a mark. And the mark tends to show up in three ways. First, the replay. You go over it again and again, lying in bed, in the shower, driving home, the cringe of it, the words you said, the moment it turned, the look on someone's face. You replay it as though watching it for the 20th time might somehow change the ending. It never does. But you watch it anyway. Second's the verdict. Somewhere in all that replaying, the mind reaches a conclusion, and it's rarely a kind one. It's almost never, well, that particular thing didn't go well. It's more to be, I'm hopeless at this. I knew I wasn't up to it. I'm just not cut out for this sort of thing. A single event hardens into a statement about who you are. And the third, the retreat. Having reached the verdict, you act on it. You start avoiding whatever went wrong. Just carefully rearranging your life so that you never have to risk that particular pain again. You stop volunteering, you stop putting your hand up, you let someone else take the big ones. And it isn't only a work thing, it's the person who got their heart broken once and has kept everyone at arm's length ever since. The one who sang or painted or wrote until someone was unkind about it and hasn't done it since. The friend who organised the trip that went wrong and never offered to organise anything again. Whenever there's been a knock, you'll often find a door that quietly got closed afterwards, and it was never reopened again. And that third one, the retreat, is the one that really cost you. Because the failure was a single afternoon, but the retreat can last for years. The flop's over in 20 minutes. The decade of avoiding ever flopping again is what shrinks the life. So before we go anywhere, let me say the one thing this whole episode rests on. The setback is rarely the real problem. What you decide about it and what it means and what to do next is. So why does it land so heavily? Why can one bad experience cast a shadow that long when 100 good ones barely register? It comes back to, as it always does in this podcast, to the brain doing its oldest job. We've talked all season about the part of you that scans for threat and exists to keep you alive. And an alarm system, built for survival, has one particular habit. It learns far more from the bad than from the good. It has to. In the world it was built for, missing a single threat could be fatal, while missing a single nice experience costs you nothing much. So the brain evolved to hold on tightly to what goes wrong. One frightening event gets burned in, stored strong, flagged for special attention, because remembering it might keep you alive next time. That's why the replay happens. Your brain isn't torturing you for fun. It's doing something it thinks is useful. It's rehearsing the threat, going over and over the danger, trying to learn it well enough to make sure it never happens again. The trouble is, what kept our ancestors alive in the savannah is not much help after a presentation that didn't land. The mechanism is ancient and blunt, and it treats a bruised ego like a brush with a predator. The one mercy is that it fades. The replay that feels unbearable on day 1 is quieter by day 10, and a distant thing by day 90. Not because you fixed it, but because the alarm slowly works out that no predator is coming and turns itself down. If you're in the loud early days of one of these right now, hold on to that. The volume drops. It always drops. And then it does one more thing. The move we've talked about back in the avoidance episode, it draws a lesson. After the knock, the alarm now has what feels like hard evidence. See, it says, we tried that and it went badly. That proves it was dangerous. So next time you go near anything similar, the alarm doesn't just fire, it fires harder, because now it's certain it was right all along. The fear after failure isn't irrational. It's your nervous system overlearning from a single bad night. One last piece, and it's a kind one. Remember the spotlight effect from the episode on rooms full of people? It applies here too, and it's a relief. The failure you're still replaying weeks later, certain that everyone saw it and everyone remembers, has almost entirely vanished from everybody else's mind. They were busy with their own worries. They have, I promise you, moved on. You are very often the only person in the world still holding it. The audience left the cinema a long time ago. You're sitting alone, watching the same scene on a loop. Now, failure has always hurt, but I think we're living in a moment that makes it harder than it needed to be. The first reason is visibility. So much of what we do now leaves a trace. It gets recorded, it gets posted, screenshotted, searchable. A mistake that once would have been forgotten by Friday can sit there findable, apparently permanent. And when a failure feels like it will be on the record forever, the fear of failing climbs much higher than the actual stakes deserve. We're carrying a level of caution that's suited a world that no longer exists. Second reason is the highlight reels, which we keep coming back to all season. Everywhere you look, other people appear to be succeeding smoothly and constantly. Nobody posts the pitch that bombed, the interview that went nowhere, the launch that flopped. So your own failure feels, well, uniquely shameful, a solitary stain in a world full of triumphs. It isn't. You've simply seen everyone else's edited version and comparing it to your own uncut footage. Everyone you admire has a long list of the things that went wrong. They just don't put it online. The third reason is that we've been sold a lie about success. The story goes that successful, confident people don't really fail. That they have some quality you're missing, some smoothness, some natural advantage that means it just works out for them. It's nonsense. When you actually sit with successful people, as I've been lucky enough to do for a long time now, what you find's the opposite. They haven't failed less than you. Most of them have failed far more because they've attempted far more. What's different isn't the absence of failure. It's what they learn to do with it. Just back to the heart of this, because it matters more than any single technique. When something goes wrong, two completely different things happen. We tend to muddle them into one. There's the event, the thing that happened. There's the verdict, the story you tell about the event means. The event's usually quite small and quite specific. A presentation didn't land, an interview didn't go your way, a piece of work got picked apart. These are real, and they could sting. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But they are bounded. They happened on a particular day in a particular room, and then they ended. The verdict is something else entirely. The verdict takes that bounded event and turns it into a permanent statement about you. I'm bad at this. I always mess these up. I'm not leadership material after all. We did a version of this distinction back in the episode on nerves and anxiety, separating the passing sensation from the lasting story. It's the same move here, and it's just as important. The event is what happened. The verdict is what you decided it proved. And this is why it matters so much. You can't always control whether something goes wrong, but you have far more say than you think over the verdict you reach about it. That presentation didn't land. Leaves you a person who can prepare differently and go again. I'm hopeless at presenting. Leaving you a person who should probably never present again. Same event, two completely different futures. The only thing that separates them is the sentence you choose to write underneath it. The setback doesn't shrink your life, the verdict does. So let's talk about how to recover the right way, starting with that very sentence. There are 5 things here, and none of them are about pretending it didn't hurt. The first is to name what happened plainly and nothing more. Strip the story back to the facts, not I made a complete fool of myself and everyone could see it, I didn't belong there. But I lost my thread about halfway through and finished badly. Say the smaller, truer version, because the dramatic version, the catastrophe, is almost always bigger than the event. When you describe what happened in plain, specific, unexaggerated words, you shrink it back to its real size. And its real size is nearly always survivable. The second is to deflate the audience in your head. When you're certain that everyone saw, everyone judged, and everyone still remembers, ask yourself one honest question. Who specifically is still thinking about this? Name them. Usually you can't, because the honest answer is almost nobody. The people you're imagining replaying your worst moment aren't at home replaying yours. They're replaying theirs, their own. You've been carrying a courtroom in your head, and the courtroom's empty. Everyone went home. Third's a big one, and it's the one your brain will fight hardest. Go again, go small, and go soon. After a knock, every instinct tells you to retreat, to wait until you feel ready, to leave a long gap. Do the opposite. The longer you wait, the larger it grows in your mind until it becomes a monster far bigger than the original event ever was. So find a smaller, low stakes version of what went wrong and do it again soon. Bombed a big presentation? Speak up in a small friendly meeting this week. Don't make your comeback the highest stakes moment of your career. Make it a gentle one. Quickly. So your brain gets fresh evidence that the catastrophe it's predicting doesn't arrive. You're not throwing yourself off the high board, you're getting back in the shallow end. The same is true away from work. Stung by a rejection? Risk a small, low-stakes ask of someone just to prove that asking didn't kill you. Lost your nerve socially after one bad evening? Go to a small, easy gathering before you take on the big one. Small and soon beats big and someday every single time, because the brain only updates on what you do, not on what you intend to do once you feel ready. The fourth is to separate the lesson from the self-attack, because these are not the same thing, and people confuse them constantly. There's a useful reflection which looks forward and is kind. What would I do differently next time? What did this teach me? And there is rumination, which looks backwards and is cruel. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? The first one helps you grow. Second one just deepens the wound and calls it learning. So mind the event for one genuinely useful thing, write it down, and then put it down. One lesson is reflection. The same lap 40 times in the dark is not. And when you catch yourself on one of those laps, you don't just have to ride it out. You can break it. A replay runs on 2 things, a still body and your full attention. So you take one of them away, stand up, move to a different room, splash cold water in your face, go for a brisk walk, and name 5 things you can see as you go. It sounds almost too simple, I know that, but a loop cannot run while your mind is busy with something real and immediate. Call it a pattern interrupt if you like. You catch your replay starting, you change your state, and you give your attention a better job to do. The trick is not to try to not think about it, because ordering yourself to stop thinking about something is the surest way to think about it more. You don't suppress the loop, you replace it. You give the mind somewhere better to go. And if a setback has knocked you lower than this into something heavier than won't lift, please treat that with the seriousness it deserves and talk to someone. That's not a failure of nerve, it's good sense. Let me say one more thing here, because I don't want any of this to sound brisk. None of these tools mean you have to skip the part where it hurts. When something you cared about goes wrong, it's allowed to sting. It's allowed to sting for a while. Feeling low after a real knock isn't weakness, and it isn't you failing to recover quickly enough. It's just being a person who cared. The aim is not to feel nothing. The aim is to feel it honestly, without turning it into a life sentence. Grief over a setback is healthy. It's the verdict riding on it that you want to watch out for. And the fifth ties the whole season together. Count the recovery as evidence. We've talked from the very first episode about confidence grown through evidence. Well, this is the deepest evidence there is. Not I've never failed, but I have failed and I came back. Because that's what's real. Durable confidence actually rests on it. Not a spotless record, which nobody has, but a quiet, growing pile of proof that you can take a knock and recover from it. So when you do get back up, mark it. Put it in the evidence log we started. Not just the wins, the recoveries. They're worth more. Here's how this tends to go when it goes well. Think of someone who's been knocked sideways, maybe a big role that ended badly or a move up the way that didn't work out. The kind of thing that doesn't just bruise your confidence but seems to call the whole of you into question. First few weeks the verdict's loud, I'm not good enough, I was found out, everyone could see it. And then slowly the recovery starts. And it almost never looks like heroic. It looks small. They name what happened in plain words instead of the catastrophe. They notice that the people they were so sure were judging them have in fact got on with their lives. They edge back towards it in a conversation, a meeting, a modest version of the task, and they survive it. And then another. And this is the part that matters most, the part you'll hear more about in the very next episode. Almost nobody does this alone. The people who recover well are the ones who let someone in, a mentor, a trusted colleague, a friend who tells them the truth, which is that they're not the disaster their own mind has been insisting they are. The mask we talked about last time comes off, just enough to let someone help and some honesty in, bit by bit, on the strength of small steps and a few good people. The verdict loosens its grip, and they find they can do it again after all. A little more carefully, but they can do it. That's recovery, not some sort of dramatic comeback. It's a handful of small steps taken sooner than you feel ready, usually with someone alongside you. And it's worth saying this, that it won't be a straight line. Recovery never is. You'll have a good week and think, wow, we're through this. And then a stray memory or a similar situation will knock you back. Might only be for an afternoon, but you'll wonder if you made any progress at all. You did. A dip is not a return to the start. It's just the old alarm testing whether you still mean it. Keep taking the small steps and the dips get shallower and further apart. That's what healing actually looks like from the inside. Bumpy and slower than you'd like and real. So this is your shift I'd like you to take from this one. We spend so much energy trying not to fail, and understand that. Failure hurts and the fear of it is real. But the goal was never a life with no failure in it. That life doesn't exist, and the only way to get close to it is attempt so little that you've nothing left worth losing. That's not safety, that's just a slower kind of disappointment. The goal is to become someone who can take a knock and find their way back, because that, in the end, is what confidence really is. Not the belief that nothing will ever go wrong. The quiet earned knowledge that when it does, as it will, you'll be able to handle it. You've handled it before, and you're still here. The people who seem unshakable aren't the ones who've never been shaken. They're the ones who've been shaken more than once, and have the evidence that they came back. That evidence is available to you too. You collect it in the same way they did, one recovery at a time. Here's an experiment for the week. It's a gentle one because this is gentle territory. Think of one thing you stopped doing or started avoiding after it went wrong once. You know the one. It'll come to mind quickly because it's been sitting there for a while. And this week, take one step, small step, back towards it. Not the big version, the smallest possible version. If you're speaking up, say one thing in one friendly meeting. If it's put yourself forward for something tiny. Just enough to give your brain a fresh piece of evidence that that old catastrophe didn't come back. While you're at it, catch the verdict if it shows up. When the voice says, I'm just no good at this, pause and swap it for the event. That one time didn't go well. Then take the step anyway. And if you get back up, write that down. The recovery counts. The recovery always counts. Let me leave you with this. When something went wrong all those years ago, the thing that you never quite done again, it didn't prove that you were broken. It proved that you tried something that mattered to you. And on that particular day, it didn't work out. Those are very different things. One's a verdict. The other's just a Tuesday afternoon that went badly. You're allowed to have failed. Everyone you admire has, more than they'll ever say. What they learned, and what I'd love you to take from today, is that failure was never the end of the story. It was a chapter. A hard one, maybe, but the book kept going because they kept going, one small and slightly braver step at a time. So go and take yours. It went wrong, you're still here, and being still here ready to try again is not the opposite of confidence. It's where it comes from. Thanks for joining me for the episode. I'm John M. Walsh, and I'll see you next time.